Cowl vents. I know what we could do with those. Instead of just shaving it and making it a smooth cowl, I have this scrap hood side. Same one we use to put the louvers in these inner fenders. These cowl panels, they're really easy to warp, so I want to be really, really careful. I actually thought about not doing this, but I think I, I think I really want to. We'll cut a piece of sheet metal in this shape, and once we get that good, we'll lay it on here and trace it out. Cut all these out. It is loud out there today. Tropical storm Debbie passing by us right about now. Actually, it really passed by a couple hours ago. It was really raining. Anyway, it's just crazy how it all comes to life out here after it rains. I clean this up with alcohol so our tape will stick to it so we can make a template. Trying not to cut a whole lot out of this cowl. So we're going to use the ends of these vents and even the tips because they'll kind of help hold the structure, like here at the ends where it's got a bend in it. And every one of these tips has a little tiny bend in it. Those little things should help absorb some heat and prevent it from warping too because they're holding structure. That's my idea anyway. You have to find some scrap sheet metal like this. You'll have to excuse the rain and wind noise today. So I made a line a 1/4 inch in because remember I had an idea. We're actually going to set this panel here inside those a 1/4 inch. So there's actually going to be a 1/4 inch hole all the way along this thing. And I had a very good reason for that. One thing I didn't do is cut this panel a 1/4 inch short. Well, take a 1/4 inch out of there. But we're shaving it. Why are there holes? I told you I got an idea. Hold on. It'll all make sense, I promise. Although I did kind of screw up, but it's all right. It's fixable. I have holes all the way across. The ones in the center, they're over the top of this distributor cove. I didn't want those there. So that means we're going to have to fill these holes. It's no big deal. Just more possibilities of this warping. Maybe we'll cut a new piece. Probably not. All right, I got this piece stuck on here with magnets, and it's looking pretty good. Ground down some of the paint in some of the areas. So we'll get this tacked on here, and we'll get those magnets off, keep welding it. We're going to really take our time on this because, like I said, this is going to warp really easy. This is 22 gauge. It's some thin stuff. Yeah, we're just stacking tacks, then blowing them cool. One at a time. How many of you guys notice I did something that I didn't want to do? I live in Southwest Florida. We have a rainy season. How does one accidentally shave windshield wipers? I don't know, but I did it. I had to put the hole back in. So many little tacks to grind off. I got to be careful here too, because this can warp this panel just as bad as welding. Put the wiper hole back in. That's nice. Looks pretty good. I'm going to chase these holes with this drill bit as soon as I'm done bleeding. See what this looks like on there. Now, before anybody gives me grief about cutting up a 100-year-old hood side, it's just one random side I have laying around. Besides that, they're a dime a dozen. Everybody takes them off for their hot rod. I was originally thinking putting some of them together and going all the way across from here to there, just one long louver, but I kind of like it like this. Maybe I'll do two. I'll just cut another one out and put it up there so we can see what it would look like with two of them. Kind of hard to see it with them being rusty color. I do like just having two of them. I'd like to have just one also, but I think it'd be so long. So it's a new day. Slept on that. And I still like it. I don't know. If I walked by somebody else's truck and I saw those on there, I'd think, hey, that's pretty cool. That's pretty unique. Especially since they were from a Model A, or actually, I think those were from a Dodge Brothers. But I think the fact that there's two of them is kind of throwing me off. So we're going to kind of try to mock up just one long one and see what that looks like. I'm honestly torn. I don't know what I like better. Or we just don't do them and we just have a smooth wiper cowl. But I put those holes in there for a reason. I'm usually pretty good at envisioning things. I guess maybe my problem is I can envision it. I can envision it both ways, and either one is okay by me. So, since I couldn't make up my mind, I asked you guys to do it for me. So let's see what you guys want to do here. Go to my channel, community posts. So I put this poll out asking your opinion. One louver or two louvers? 80% said two separate louvers. I guess we're doing two separate louvers. Thank you for making up my mind. That means I cut up this perfectly good louver. That's okay. We'll set that aside. We'll find something to do with that sometime. And we got the ends on this still too. You never know. We might use those for something. So we'll have to figure out the best way to weld these in here. I'm thinking we're gonna have to cut all of the flat section out of these louvers, so that way it just sits right down on here and we'll weld along there. Problem with that is going to be the body work right here at the bend where the louver goes up. If we weld that, there's going to be a lot of body work there. I'd rather keep this flat section and weld around it. If we do that, this area here, like the area after the holes, we're going to end up having to weld to the bottom also. And that's just a whole lot of welding on this really thin wiper cowl. Yeah. All right, another pull. Just kidding, we're not doing that. Let's pull this off and get an idea what the heck we're gonna do. You know, it really does look cool with those holes in there. I mean, I think so. I just thought of something else. There's not a lot of room on the inside of that to make sure that we get it primed and painted well. I think what I'm gonna need to do is get all the rust off the bottom side of these louvers, spray this with an epoxy primer, spray this area on the cowl with an epoxy primer, and then we'll weld this on there. That way we know we did the best we could to get that protected in there, because I'd hate for that to start rusting from underneath that louver. That would suck. Yeah. I'm using this guy here, this weird biscuit looking muffin thing. I don't even know what this is called, but it works pretty good. I'm gonna follow that up with a little Scotch-Brite. We buzzed over these areas on the cowl with 80 grit on a DA and then 180, just trying to kind of get it knocked down a bit. Bodywork underneath these louvers is going to be a pain, so I don't want it to be more of a pain than it needs to be. Just spray those with this alcohol, just because. So I still have one more can of this aerosol epoxy primer. This stuff's been super handy. We've used it a lot. It's actually a two-part epoxy primer. It's got the activator in the bottom. Problem with it, it's kind of pricey. But like I said, it's convenient. Amazon link down below. Epoxy primer is direct to metal. You can do body work over it to make sure that's all good and sealed up in there, even though we'll probably burn some of it away when we weld that louver on. Take the button out of the cap, flip her upside down, put the button on the activator, push it till it pops. That releases the activator into the primer. Shake it for a good couple minutes. We'll just spray it where these louvers are going to cover it and the underside of the louvers. We got a good couple coats on that. This is good for 4 days after we release that activator in it. I'm going to put it in the refrigerator just to make sure we get that out of it, even though we'll probably be using the rest of it tomorrow. Anyway, as soon as this primer dries, we'll figure out how we're going to weld these louvers on. So here's what we got going on today. I cut this across here, up on this side and up on this side, and then sprayed it with epoxy again. My thought is that when we put this on there, we'll be able to push that down so it's totally flush with the cowl. That way we don't end up with this little bump to deal with. And I think that'll work. I'm able to push this louver down and make it all flush. So that should weld up really nicely, and we'll have minimal body work, because you know how much I love body work. So what I was saying earlier about having to weld underneath it, that's what I'm talking about. We're gonna have to weld this flap. We'll have to weld that from underneath. Got some really horrible tacks. They're horrible because we were welding right onto epoxy primer, but we got this thing sitting in place right. So now we can find our die grinder and prep this to actually weld it. That's all welded up. Now we're gonna grind it smooth. 36 grit Rolock disc on the die grinder. Do a good job, like always. I'll grind down with the die grinder. Took this wire wheel to the louvers. I hate that thing, by the way. But we had to make sure any rust and whatever was out of the pitting on these things. Then we took a DA with 80 grit on it. Then we went over it again with 180. We should be ready to spray this epoxy primer back on it. Definitely not like a done, finished, final primer. But we don't want this to end up all rusty like everything else. Like this poor panel we made. Actually, if we get a couple coats of epoxy on this cowl, maybe we'll take the DA, clean that up, and get some epoxy primer on that too. Maybe. That'll do. Put this outside in the sun. It's kind of bake. One thing we have a lot around here is sun. Except for the other day. Let's get that cowl on there and see what it looks like. Hey, that turned out pretty good. And I like the holes on the inside of them. You gotta be kidding me. Now, the hood isn't aligned perfectly, it's just there. But check this out. I don't know how much that's showing up on the camera, but those louvers line up perfect. The outside end lines up perfect with the body line on the hood. The inside lines up perfectly with the hole in the hood. It even looks perfect from the inside. This worked out great. I mean, I meant to do it the whole time. That was the plan all along. I was just playing with you guys. So we could have just shaved this wiper cowl and not had those fresh air vents. My idea with having the holes and covering them with the louvers was that I could get a smooth look, but still have them be kind of functional. I don't know how much air is gonna move through those holes, but the plan is to install an inline fan, like from like a bilge fan from a boat, so I can kick that on and it'll pull fresh air from outside and blow it in the interior. That's my idea anyway. Thanks for hanging out with me today, guys, and thanks for playing along with that poll, because that worked out really well. Thank you. And ltscustomgarage.com for cool t-shirts, hand-done pinstripe art, and I don't know, can koozies and stuff. I think it's time we put the starter in. See you out there.